The first time that I went to Barrio Anita, that's when I got married. And we lived in 903 North Canson. That's a Canson and Lord. At the end of that street, Lord, there's they still the store, you know, la tienda de los chinitos. Now I think it's a tortilleria, very famous tortilleria.
610 North Canson Avenue, across the street from Ori Park. I still call it Ori Park.
I live on 901 North Banalstein Avenue. It parallels the railroad tracks. Like I said, my grandma lived there a long time, and she had a really nice adobe house. And I wish that they would have fixed that house instead of knocking it down and building her the house that I live in now, because it had so much character.
I married in 1961. The handsome guy that I married, his name was Joe Rivera Cuestas, and he lived in, well, he was born in Barrio Anita, or Canson. He was born there. The house that he was born there, that house was built in 1900. It was made of adobe, a huge adobe walls that it had.
But the house had no foundation. The adobes were on the ground. Maybe a lot of houses didn't have foundations at that time.
Right across the street from Davis School. As I said, we lived on the south side, and then my grandparents lived on the west side of the school. My grandmother's house, there was 2 rooms and a dirt kitchen. And I don't know if all 8 kids grew up there. But there was no plumbing in the house. And there was like a little storage shed close to the house. And right outside the house was the water spigot. My grandmother, I remember her regando this floor and then sweeping the dirt floor kitchen.
My dad had bought a piece of property from the Ramos family. It was 47 North Canson, and it was a large lot, and basically composed of 2 small, 1 adobe house and 1 little tiny shack house next to it. Had no sewer, was an outside toilet, and basically we made the fence out of ocotillo. We used to go to the desert and put ocotillo fence with railroad ties.
We need to preserve the treasures of working class people who worked on the railroads, who worked and suffered throughout their lives to raise their families. They built these adobe buildings with their hands, and it's beautiful. That's a treasure, and let me tell you, it took me a while to understand that. When you work on these buildings, because I'm remodeling some of the buildings, you start falling in love with the structure and the architecture, because there were hands there before us that put that adobe in there, and they did it with love, man. And they didn't have the tools, because a lot of the buildings are, you know, some of them are chueco, some of them are, and then, you know, I leveled it out, but at the time they did it with heart, they did it with feelings, they did it with love, and that's beautiful if you really think about it. And then once in a while you'll see certain objects, a marble, a piece of glass from at that time period. We're talking 1900s, time of the Revolution, and maybe time before that. It's fascinating. You start learning about the timelines of the people before you, and they did these things with heart, and they were part of it. The building with roots coming out on fire of passion.
God, I had a really nice porch area where my nana had flowers everywhere. And the walls were thick. She had one bedroom, a living room. I think it was like one big bedroom, one little bedroom, one bathroom, the kitchen, and the living room, and that was it. But they had my tata. He used to work with his hands, but they had a cuartito, a little room in the back, with my nana's wooden stove. So my nana would make tortillas back there and beans and all that stuff. So as little kids, and even as we were going to John Spring Junior High on the way home, we'd stop by and have those beans and those. She'd always make soups. I mean, yeah, they were separate. They were little cuartitos. He had them like to keep tools in them, and then they had one that was like an outside kitchen, basically, where my nana made all her stuff and menudo and all that stuff.
Do you remember ever watching her?
Absolutely, yes. And in my house right now, part of the deal is that they wanted a place to make tortillas, and so there's my washroom, and next to the washroom there's a little tiny area where that wooden stove still exists, but we don't use it. But yeah, so they used to make tortillas back there as well. They didn't have the cuartitos anymore, but the wooden stove was, they had to make it, or else she was going to say no quiero esta casa, you know.
And we were hoity-toity on my grandmother's house. They had a phone, they had a telephone, and it did not have any indoor plumbing. But on the way in the back, where normally there would be an outhouse, there was a water closet. The name. That's where the name, the international sign for toilets used to be WC, water closet. So we had an outhouse, a plumbing outhouse in the back with a have you ever seen those where they had the tank on top with a chain?
Yeah.
Very, very efficient.
When I was going to school, we had a bathtub, and we used to, on the wood stove, used to heat water so we could go ahead, and then we used to, what we called cuartillar, we used to make sure we had enough hot water in there, and then we turn on just got medium, so we could use the medium heat. And then getting up and trying to get dressed when it was so cold.